Hey everyone, Mia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead from July 21st till July 27th of 2025. And we're starting this week in the final days of the lunar cycle, a waning crescent moon in the sign of Gemini, ruled by Mercury that just stationed retrograde. And I'm so wondering, you guys, how you have been feeling this, because a lot of this transits this week are happening in Gemini and in Virgo, which means they are ruled by Mercury, and Mercury that just stationed retrograde. So if you've been feeling, or if you are feeling a bit confused, a bit scattered, don't worry. It's up in the air right now. So, the tone is already scattered, a bit disoriented, maybe even a bit mentally foggy. So if you're feeling all over the place, you're most definitely not alone. And yes, there's a lot going on this week. Mars is going to hit the South Node, has already done as of now when I'm recording this video. And I did preview it a bit in last week's video. I'm recording these always on Monday. Sometimes I'm uploading it on Monday evening, right? And so sometimes there are transits that happen like Monday right after midnight. So that's why usually when this happens, I try to already preview them in last week's astrology, which I did. So yes, but we're definitely also going to talk about this here as well, because there is always an engagement range when transits happen, give and take 3 degrees. Sometimes when the moon, because the moon travels so fast, there is even a larger degrees we can take into consideration. But yes, so there's like the peak happens here, but there's like the energy starts moving, and then there's the peak, and then it starts waning again. So you have to think of transits as something like this pyramid I'm forming here with my hands. So like this is the peak, right? But you can already feel it here. So just because that Mars conjunct South Node in Virgo transit already happened a bit after midnight, here in Central European time at least, does not mean this energy is completely over, so we're definitely still feeling it. In the air, Venus is also reaching the bending of the nodes this week, and we have a very, very, very exclamation mark powerful Leo new moon tied to all the outer planets this week. So let's walk through it day by day and then deep dive into what's being initiated. So Monday, July 21st, once again, waning crescent moon happening in Gemini. When there's a waning crescent moon happening, we also call it balsamic phase, usually, is when, the moon is really entering its stage before the new moon starts happening. So it feels a bit more restful, and the idea is usually to not really head out and go do things during that balsamic phase, but it's more here for rest and resetting before that new moon moment hits, and then there is a beginning of a new cycle. Think of the new moon always as planting the seed. It's kind of like a conjunction. It literally is a conjunction between the sun and the moon, right? But it is a seeding moment, and then usually we can see the seedling and what it has done kind of 6 months later when the full moon happens in the respective sign. So if we have a new moon in Leo right now this week, then there's going to be a full moon in Leo around 6 months later when it's Aquarius season in February. So yes, and the new and full moons always happen in opposing signs. Sometimes the full moon is happening first in the respective sign. It really depends on where the sun is and what Turnus is about things. There's going to be a switch up this summer again, because we're going to have 2 Virgo new moons the next month, and then in September as well. And then it's going to switch again. Then we're first going to experience the full moon in the opposing sign, and then the new moon in the sign of the season. But right now we're still starting off with the new moon in being the first one, so to say. I hope I make sense here with what I'm saying. It's Mercury retrograde, so I'm really questioning like how to express myself in a way that's not too confusing. Because I definitely feel, you know, it's happening in my 10th house of like work and how I'm being seen. And also this Mars conjunct South Node is pretty close to my MC in Virgo. So personally for me, I'm really like, I really want to make sure that I'm getting my words across clearly here. Like I don't want to miscommunicate and then people perceive things wrongly or not the way that I intended to say them. So yes, I'm totally overthinking things a bit these past few days ever since Mercury stationed retrograde, to be completely honest. Definitely also an urge to not be perceived too much. I had to like sit down and motivate myself really hard to sit down today and record this video, just because I really don't feel like being on camera at all, and this hasn't happened in a while, so I'm here showing up for you guys. But yes, again, we're starting this week off with a buzzing mind, a bit restless and unclear, which again doesn't fit so much with the fact that this is more of a balsamic moon phase. It would be much more restful if this wasn't really going on, but this is kind of what is happening. And then again, Mars conjoining South Node in Virgo. There is an urge to purge and to clean and to fix and perfect. The South Node is about decrease, so it's decreasing things. It is kind of decreasing the maleficness of Mars in this regard. That's why there is like a big purging moment that is going on, and I highly urge you, today, if you have the time, maybe do just a small like cleansing ritual. Virgo especially loves if you do a cleansing ritual in the way that you're like sort things out or in an orderly way, like maybe do a wash and a clean in your room. There's many like small astro magic things you can do here. There's like ways that you can, put some magic, so to say, in your water and then clean out your room or your whole apartment or house with that water, to really like set things up for a new beginning. I'm stuttering all of a sudden. So yes, one thing that can happen, and there is always a problem with both of the nodes, they can tend to be a bit extreme. And so sometimes when things cross over the South Node, the urge to release and purge can become so strong that your initial like knee-jerk reaction of being like, I want to start a new workout routine, I want to start a new diet, I want to clean my whole house. Like, it's a good intention, right? But it becomes so much about perfecting it and doing it completely right that, something that started off as a good idea then kind of backfires. And instead of, just wanting to swipe the floors, you completely clean your whole house and then you forget to eat and you get dizzy, whatever, and then it like backfires something good. Or again, you start a new diet and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat super healthy, but then you try to do it so forcibly that it stresses you out more, and then this actually impacts the way that you can digest the food in a negative way. Or again, you start a new workout, you're like, I'm gonna do this, is Virgo, is Mercury, it's in the mind. So like maybe in your mind you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. You go to the gym and you're like, whoa, like I can do these exercises super easy, and you overdo it. Next day you feel completely like you've overextended yourself. So this is something we kind of have to look out here. Just because you think you can do things in your mind doesn't mean that your physical body is necessarily always ready. So be mindful of overcorrection and let go of compulsive fixing, and ask yourself, what am I ready to release from my routine or work ethic that is no longer worth burning out over or putting in the effort in? So this is how we start off this week. And then on Tuesday, July 22nd, Venus is at the bending of the nodes. Venus is in the sign of Gemini right now. And when we say a planet is at the bending of the nodes, it means it's right at the middle point between the south and the north node. And this then is like a square, that kind of happens, but the nodes are always opposing each other. So that's kind of what it means, bending of the nodes. So there is a bit of a turning point here in how we relate, how we speak, and how we value things. And, the fact that this is happening again in the sign that are ruled by Mercury means we are going back to Mercury that is currently retrograde. So there's the probability that you're revisiting stuff right now, old patterns in love, maybe how you express yourself or haven't expressed yourself, the way you created art, the way you have been passionate, the way you have, just your social settings around you. Maybe you've encountered a new group you want to be part of. And it's like, you have to think, is this really worth it? Is this, just bringing a ting of awareness in what you are doing right now. It's a bit of a head-heavy week, I must say. And I think the answer here is always try to bring it back to your body. When the mind is overreactive, there's a lot that you can do by breathing slowly, maybe sitting down outside in nature without your phone, and just kind of centering back to your center, just so you can kind of realize, because again, the mind can think many things, but the body is sometimes, sometimes they're not in congruence. And what we want to do is kind of try to bring them into congruence here. Then on Tuesday, what is also happening is that the moon enters the sign of Cancer. I like this as the final moon before the before the new moon, just because it feels a bit more balsamic than that Gemini moon on Monday. And we also have the start of Leo season. The sun officially enters the sign of Leo on Tuesday, which means Leo season begins. But there's a bit of a but I have here. It's not the softest Leo season, okay? I wish I could sit here and say yeah, it's gonna be bold, it's gonna be passionate, but there's a lot happening, okay? This Leo season does not start off soft at all. So yeah, it comes in like a storm, not a spotlight, okay? Because the outer planets are all lining up and they're all kind of, or I guess we could say the sun is aspecting all the outers. And so it definitely feels like an initiation point this year around. Last year, we had, we also had the Pluto opposition. This year, all of the outer planets are freaking active, so... Yes, and this is much more visible on Wednesday, July 23rd, because then the sun sextiles Uranus in Gemini, and also since Venus and Mars are super nearby each other and they have just aspected the nodes, means they're also gonna aspect each other and they're gonna square each other. So sun sextiling Uranus and Gemini definitely brings in surprising insights, creative flashes, and unexpected self-awareness. Maybe there's like an aha moment that goes on during Wednesday where you're like, oh, this is how I have contributed to my reality. Or, oh, this is the way that maybe I have said something or have not said something that is impacting the way that I am in relation to other people or to myself. Again, with Uranus, there's always this unexpected force. It's sometimes hard to grasp what exactly it's going to bring. But, if we think of it in an archetypal lens, the sun in Leo is kind of about, our ego, the way that we assert ourselves. And then Gemini, Uranus and Gemini is so much about like information, how we process things. So there's definitely a new like self-realization moment happening. Probably if you want to look at your own personal chart, look at which houses Leo and Gemini rule, because these houses, they're kind of going to give you the topics and where these, unexpected self-awareness moments might chime in. Then we also have Venus in Pisces squaring Mars in Virgo. Oh, Venus. See, I did a typo again here. That is so... It already happened last week. I swear, Mercury in Leo is doing things. Venus in Gemini, obviously, is not Venus in Pisces. But I caught myself there. And even yesterday, we had the workshop, the Decan Dance workshop on Decans of Cancer, and we never had any issues with the presentation whatsoever. This time around, some of the pictures in the presentations like had a faulty I don't know, they just didn't like properly show up, and we constantly had to like go out of the presentation and re-upload them again, which was annoying. But I was like, that was it could not get any more Mercury retrograde than this. It's just this little shenanigan things that happens with like, oh, there's a typo, there's something technically that should have worked, now it's not working, there's the train delay. Yesterday too, you know, like I tried to be on time, I ran down, missed my train by default. All we can do at the end is try and laugh at it, you know, because Mercury is a trickster planet, and when Mercury plays its tricks, the best you can do is laugh at it, because as soon as you take it way too seriously, Mercury is gonna mess it up even more. So, yeah, sorry about that. Obviously, Venus in Gemini is squaring Mars in Virgo, not Venus in Pisces. So there is a bit of a, you know, both of them are, again, literally ruled by this Mercury that is going retrograde in the sign of Leo. So, yeah, and you know, Venus and Mars are kind of the lover planets when they're in a square. You know, there's always like an urge to force harmony, but it doesn't really work. There is always like a tension. I feel like between both of them, like, who's the teacher? You know, like, who's the teacher here? Because both of them are ruled by Mercury, right? Like, that's kind of what still connects both of them, even though they're squaring each other, is Mercury. But again, things are kind of confusing, and with Mars and Venus together here, I think there's a big room exploring like how past relationships have impacted you. Again, with like self-assertion, lack of self-assertion, confidence, lack of self-confidence, communicating, not communicating things, giving the silent treatment, oversharing, like all of this, like versus, you know, that's kind of mercurial, like Mercury travels between the worlds. And so it's always a bit like this and this, you know, it's always like a tension energy that is going on, especially when the square is hitting. In your personal relationships, that day could definitely like intensify emotional arguments, misunderstandings. Again, maybe you want to assert yourself, you want to step up and communicate your boundaries, but it backfires because you have been misunderstood for whatever reason, you know, or just like passion feels strangely reactive. Like you want to do one thing, like you want to make a nice gesture, and then it backfires because the person misunderstands your nice gesture. They're like, oh, like you want to, you know, like maybe you gift someone something, and instead of them feeling thankful for it, they're like, oh, you're doing this just because you want to like manipulate me or something. Like these small things that just turn into misunderstandings that shouldn't have been misunderstandings. So interesting day, Wednesday. Definitely the day with a lot of like social upheaval that is going on. And then we move on to Thursday, July 24th. We have the new moon in the sign of Leo, that again kind of does all of the same things that the sun is also doing, aspecting all of the outer planets. So it's going to trine Saturn, that is retrograde, trine Neptune, that is retrograde, sextile Uranus, and also oppose Pluto. So, you know, this is kind of the moment of the week. And especially that new moon is happening at 2 degrees of Leo. So it's really right at the beginning where all of the other outer planets are also kind of standing right now. So there's definitely a whole new beginning chapter of creativity, courage, and identity. Okay, Leo words we're using here. The sextile to Uranus in Gemini probably brings some mental breakthroughs, but possibly also disorganized, like premature wishful thinking that gets in the way, or like this, you know, sometimes Uranus, or let me rephrase that. I'm thinking back to the day prior where we have the sun sextiling Uranus. You get a new self-realization. Maybe don't act on it immediately. Sometimes Uranus feels very immediate, but now is not the time with the retrograde to act immediately. Be more low-key about changes that you want to make. Then, of course, the new moon also trines Saturn in Aries. So Again, a different energy. It feels more like anchoring into responsibility and testing the integrity of our creative self. Then also trining Neptune. This is a bit of like, yearning that is involved, but also like kind of coming clean. There's like an illusion versus the vision we're kind of having. And then the opposition to Pluto in Aquarius is confronting collective expectations around power dynamics and the hidden layers of our need to be seen. So as you see, there's a lot that is going on this Leo new moon. Lots of energies kind of coming together that are hard to put all under one hat, especially because a lot of the outer planets are so collective. So I wouldn't be surprised if collectively there's a lot of things that are kind of coming up around these themes. There can be all these themes that I just mentioned coming up in different ways globally. But there is definitely I think the overall theme with Leo, right? There's always a theme of like being seen, the need of being seen, and like why. Exactly. So, and there's always like, another Leo keyword is also confidence. But it's also a vulnerable new moon, and that it feels a bit like raw and like speaking the truth. I think a lot of people forget or don't give credit enough to Leo as a sign and how much it loves the truth and honesty. Okay, so the question overall here is what wants to rise through the chaos and confusion, and what part of you is asking to be reborn through contradiction? Because again, there is a lot happening and there's no clear answer right now. It is a seeding moment, but the seeding moment is a seeding moment. There's so much that's going to happen underneath the soil when the seed starts to sprout, when it comes up, okay? It's confusing for the seed too in that initial moment when it gets put underground. So yes, this is kind of what I have for Thursday. I feel like there's probably more that can be said around the Leo new moon. I definitely also want to create a post on Instagram. I'm not sure I'm gonna find the time to do a whole YouTube video about it. So definitely, follow me on Instagram if you like these tidbits and want written posts. Then on Friday, July 25th, the sun then is also gonna oppose Pluto, and the moon is gonna conjoin Mercury that is in its retrograde motion. So there's a continued fallout from the new moon. The Sun-Pluto opposition, is not the first Sun-Pluto opposition we are getting, but Sun-Pluto oppositions, especially around Leo, so much about, the themes of power, of like what visibility can bring, what like being famous can bring you, kind of the dark side of being famous and people knowing you, of being seen. On the other contrary hand, there's also like, are you holding shame of stepping into the limelight and being more visible? Is a lot around. Pluto also brings a lot of like survivalistic energy, and I know for a lot of people, being seen, being truly seen brings in a lot of like survival, like primal fears of what that means, because, maybe they felt like they were not accepted before, or they felt like they were banished from a friend group or something for, being true to themselves. So this is what Sun Pluto in Leo and Aquarius kind of brings up. Aquarius and Leo is the axis of like the self and the collective. Okay, like what if I put myself at the center? What if I put the collective at the center? And so in our personal lives, this is very much about this. And I feel like the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility, also visible here. And like maybe just ask yourself that, what old roles are you, I swear, so hard to speak when Mercury is retrograde. Like what old roles do you still cling to when you're afraid of disappearing? Like what are you afraid will happen that comes with visibility and being seen? And can you maybe try to do some regulating exercises that will help you feel safe in being more seen and more visible. Obviously, and then Moon conjunct retrograde Mercury in Leo. There is, mental and emotional rewiring going on, but it's going to be much more prominent next week when we have the Sun Mercury conjunction or Cazimi moment. Then on Saturday and Sunday, I kind of group them together because they're not any like super major transits going on. We have the moon moves into the sign of Virgo, so there's definitely a lot more like bodily awareness and organization around rest, and we can probably integrate that Mars South Node conjunction a bit better. And Moon in Virgo also gonna, square Uranus and Gemini. That's exciting. Could be a minor like tension relief or aha moment. Again, here could be some like somatic insight, like a physical disruption that brings mental clarity. You connect like, oh, what I'm doing, like this pattern that I'm doing is actually deeply affecting my nervous system, and that is not good. So I do think it's like the weekend kind of integrates this start of the week, which starts off with the moon in Gemini, and then we start off with the moon in Virgo. So again, Gemini, Virgo, super present this week. Again, as you can also see by me talking, there's just a lot of these transits are impacted by a Mercury that is in retrograde. And, even the sun moving into the sign of Leo is... not directly, but still they're in the same sign. Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Leo, and they're also moving closer and closer to each other. So, let this week end on a more simple note, and don't overdo the healing. Just focus on listening to your body as much as you can. And yes, definitely, this week brings fire. There's insight, there's confusion, there's truth, there's a bit... all of it at once, everything, everywhere, all at once. This is kind of what this week feels like. Mercury retrograde is behind the scenes of everything, asking us to rewrite how we speak, think, and direct energy. So let yourself unravel a bit and let yourself reset this week. Next week, we're going to have Chiron stationing retrograde. Venus is going to move into the sign of Cancer, and we're going to have a Sun Mercury Cazimi that is happening next week, that are kind of going to integrate even further what is happening this week. Yes, I do also want to apologize because I kind of have been a bit MIA here on YouTube. Fully admit that. I have been a bit more active on Instagram for this moment and time being. So, again, always worth checking out what I'm posting on there. But I do just want to apologize. But there's definitely things brewing in the background, okay? Usually, if there's less noise from me, that means there's a lot of noise behind the scenes. And there is a plan to upload belated, but still absolutely relevant, Uranus and Gemini horoscopes. We are also going to record the decans of Leo this week. That is coming up. And then also we're going to release the first episode of the new installment, which is called Meet the Planets, this week, and we're going to start off with the moon. So yeah, lots of preparation. We're also going to record the Mercury episode this week. So again, lots brewing in the back. And I think there's also, at least that's what I want to do, I want to make a video talking about like the Reddit, Astrology Reddit. Me and a friend, we kind of want to expose Astrology Reddit. We just want to talk about the subreddit on astrology there. There's also a plan of doing like a One Piece related astrology video. But a bit more fun. I don't know. I definitely want to just bring in a bit more fun videos as well and kind of mix it up. But yeah, things are coming. Things are on the way. But just so you know this from me, okay? I'm not disappearing, okay? I am still absolutely doing the weekly overviews, and there is videos gonna also be uploaded apart from the weekly overviews. So this is what I have for you guys this week. Again, liking, subscribing, and commenting always helps, but absolutely okay if you don't want to do that. And yes, I wish you a wonderful week ahead. Always curious to see how this has been landing or going on for you. Again, for me, all of this is kind of happening in my 10th, 11th house, and I do kind of feel like in hermit mode. I have been way too social last week, and right now I just feel like I don't want to be perceived at all, which feels very fitting for this week. I'm grappling also with the topic of like visibility, being seen, what that means. So, yes, I wish you a lovely week ahead, and I'm gonna see you guys soon. Bye.